Hey kids, this is the first story in a book full of stories called Thimbleberry Stories, and it's written by Cynthia Rylant. Story number 1, Nigel Meets Dipper. Nigel Chipmunk lived in a cozy little cottage on Thimbleberry Lane, and he was quite the homebody. Each morning he breakfasted on dandelion scones and lavender tea. Then he set about his housework. He had painted his house bright blue, and each day gave it a nice scrubbing inside and out. He had even built himself a tiny gazebo for evening thinking, and of this he was particularly proud. He was a contented young fellow. Nigel had grown up on Thimbleberry Lane and considered it quite the most beautiful place in the world. There were wild red roses growing all along the lane, and daylilies and honeysuckle, and since it lay far out in the countryside, it was ever so quiet and peaceful. The animals who lived beside the lane were all very neighborly, and at night one could often find a little group of them at someone's home, sharing secrets, their laughter making the candlelight flicker in the dark. Life did not change much from day to day on Thimbleberry Lane, but one morning something did change, and that was lucky for Nigel. He was taking his morning stroll, wearing a bright yellow bowler hat and an indigo scarf, when he heard an unfamiliar voice behind a clutch of foxgloves. Nigel stopped and cocked his head lightly to one side. "And a dash of this, a sprinkle of that, a fluff of the other," said a small voice. "Someone must be cooking," thought Nigel, though he could smell nothing delicious in the air. He stepped to the side of the lane and carefully spread apart the foxglove so he might see the puzzling chef. But a chef he did not see. Instead, to his surprise, Nigel saw a new dwelling on Thimbleberry Lane. It was a tiny, funny little house, and all of it was round. The house was round, the windows were round, the front door was round. Over the door someone had written the word "Welcome." But Nigel could not imagine many visitors fitting into such a round miniature place. He himself would never fit. Why, he could not even put his head through the window to look in. From inside the round house floated the voice again. "A bit of here, a bit of there," it said. "Bits of lovely everywhere." Nigel straightened his hat, cleared his throat, and called out, "Hello, good morning. Anyone about?" Quicker than Nigel could blink, a tiny head appeared in one of the windows. "Yes, about I am," someone said. And before Nigel could open his mouth to answer, the fellow had disappeared from the window and zipped out the front door. It was a hummingbird. Why, Nigel had not seen a hummingbird on Thimbleberry Lane since he was a youngster. He'd heard they were all living in the poppy gardens at the governor's mansion. "How do you do?" said Nigel gladly. "So nice to have a hummingbird move in." "Thank you. I'm Dipper, and as you can see, I am moved in for good." As he spoke, the little hummingbird moved left to right, back to front, front to back, right to left, so quickly Nigel was nearly made dizzy. He gave his head a shake to clear things up. "My name is Nigel, and I thought you were cooking." Dipper laughed and buzzed left to right. "Oh, no, not cooking. Haven't you noticed the paint all over me?" Nigel blushed. "I'm afraid you move so fast I hardly see you at all." "Oh dear," said Dipper cheerfully. He then hovered in place, his little wings humming steadily. "Is this better?" "Much," answered Nigel, enjoying the new breeze. "And now I see what you mean. What are you painting?" "Oh my, everything. Would you care to come in for tea?" Nigel looked at the tiny round door. "I'm afraid I'm the wrong size for a hummingbird home." Dipper laughed. "Of course! Oh, I've been living in the poppy gardens too long. I've forgotten that all the world is hummingbirds. That is why I moved to Thimbleberry Lane. Variety." "Shall I bring my paintings out here then?" Dipper asked. "Pardon me," said Nigel. I thought you were painting your house." "Oh no," answered Dipper. "I'll never get around to that. Too much trouble. I keep my houses small, so there's less to tend." Nigel, who lived for tending, could not understand this at all. "Wait here," said Dipper. Nigel was about to say, "All right," but before he did, Dipper had zipped into his house and back out again with something in his beak. Nigel smiled. He was growing used to Dipper's flashy style. The hummingbird hovered near a flat rock and began placing tiny squares on it. "My paintings," Dipper said proudly. Nigel peered at each little square. Never had he seen paintings so tiny. Tiny as sunflower seeds. "Why, these are landscapes," he said in surprise. "Yes," answered Dipper. "I thought you would paint small things," said Nigel. "I live small, but I see big," answered Dipper. "Do you like them?" "They are extraordinary," said Nigel. "Then they are yours," said Dipper, flying left to right and back and forth above them. "I beg your pardon," said Nigel. "I paint all the time," said Dipper. "I've never been one to sit by the fire." "I have many paintings and more to come. These are yours if you like." "I am absolutely delighted," answered Nigel. "You must return home with me. I'll fix supper for us, and you can give me advice on what to and where to hang them." "Certainly," said Dipper, and before Nigel could of course respond, the little hummingbird had gone inside and returned again dressed for dinner. "I hope you don't mind the paint on my nose," said Dipper. "It doesn't wash well." "Not at all," said Nigel. And together they returned to Nigel's dear blue cottage, where Nigel made a lovely meal of violet soup and rye toast, and told Dipper all about life on Thimbleberry Lane. Afterward, they hung paintings throughout the house, and when Dipper had gone home in the evening, Nigel pulled a chair up to his favorite painting, and taking out a magnifying glass, gazed at it all night long. That's the end of that story. There's several more in this book, and I'll read them separately because they're quite long, but they're nice. I like them. Do you like them? I love you guys.